God bless fantasy football, Waiver Wire Tuesday, alongside Sausha Durkan, Andrew Rogers. Sausha, I feel like I'm losing my voice this week from yelling at the TV this weekend about how poorly my fantasy teams produced.
I'm so frustrated. I said before this, I'm tired of this, Grandpa. You keep digging.
Dig that up. Oh, come on. Oh, you said you keep digging. I was going to say dig that up. I missed it.
Sorry.
Dad joke. It's okay. But no, I only won in 2 of my 5 leagues, which, 40%, that's not the worst thing, but you're not passing school with a 40% grade. So I was a little disappointed in my team's effort, especially in the God Bless Fantasy Football League. I got destroyed. It's okay. Schick and Nick had Miles Sanders, TJ Hawkinson, a guy I was high on going into Sunday. They also had Josh Allen, of course, and T. Higgins went off. It is what it is. You have those weeks. It just didn't go well. It's okay. We move forward, and now we hit the waiver to try to win back in week 5.
Hopefully. I mean, I can't possibly do much worse other than not winning a game at all. But anyway, we'll get it figured out.
I can't believe Pat and JT's team is 3-1. They started Alvin Kamara. Well, they just don't pay attention, but they started Alvin Kamara in 2 of the 4 weeks when he was out and still won both of those matchups. That is insane to me.
Yeah, it's
one was against me.
Maybe that I was just gonna say, were they both against you? No.
I'm a little butthurt.
I think that maybe that can be a strategy. It's just not paying attention.
I also got the biggest blowout of the week award.
Congratulations.
I was on the lower end of that.
Good job.
But no, it's a great time to regroup because we are at the point in fantasy football to where it's okay to drop the Cam Akers of the world if there's somebody better out there. Yeah. It's okay to drop the Antonio Gibsons of the world. I know I'm naming 2 big star running backs here that just are losing snap counts, snap percentages. Their target shares going down. Neither looks comfortable in the backfield this year with those that are in front of them. It's okay. Now it's okay to say, hey, let's take a chance. It's okay to do that now.
Yes,
it's better to hold on to those guys, but if you're trying to make a statement and try to climb up into the standings, I'm okay with dropping Cam Akers in certain leagues with smaller benches to grab a guy like Damian Williams, who's available. Not Damian Harris, who's available right now. Devin Singletary's available in a league right now. Those guys I'm okay with flip-flopping for. And you know what? If we want to get even juicier, how about dropping somebody for Melvin Gordon, who's available in a lot of leagues still currently? He's only 80% owned in fantasy football.
I wouldn't give him up. I wanted to give him up. I won't give him up. I'm not going to give him up.
Who, Melvin Gordon? Do you have Melvin Gordon?
Pretty sure I do.
Oh, there you go. That's the person to have going into Thursday night football. Thursday night, of course, the Broncos and Colts. Javonte Williams tore his ACL, and that is just a heartbreaking injury for anybody in football. Yes. For fantasy managers out there, now you have to figure out where you resort because most likely you didn't grab Melvin Gordon too because the Broncos were using that RB1, RB2 type of tandem, the 1A, like the Packers were using with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. But now what do you do next? If you don't have Melvin Gordon, where do you go? If you have Melvin Gordon, congratulations. If he can stay healthy and hold on to the football and stop fumbling.
That's the other thing, too, is that a lot of the higher echelon players that, at the beginning of the season, everyone's like, no, these are 100% start players. Well, some of those players are not having a great time holding on to the ball. They're fumbling it or they're just not getting the targets like you mentioned. So, yeah.
Melvin Gordon,
try to help you.
25 career fumbles, and I think he's only been in the league for like 7 years. Yeah. That's a lot of fumbles for a running back. A lot.
Yeah.
But here's where we want to direct you now. There's Mike Boone that's available, and there's Latavius Murray, who was just poached off of the Saints practice squad, who had a big week in place of Alvin Kamara and is now on the Broncos roster. Where do you go? Out of those two, where do you go? I don't think anyone is worth owning in this backfield outside of Melvin Gordon, but I'm going to give you somebody here that I think you might as well just take a chance on, a flyer on, because if Melvin Gordon continues to struggle or if he also carries that questionable tag over week after week and then that turns into an out here and there, Latavius Murray, to me, is the guy over Mike Boone. 2 former Vikings, but Murray is the better back. Despite him being 5 years older than Mike Boone, he's old reliable in my mind, opposed to Mike Boone. It's understood Mike Boone would get the first cracks in that backfield because he knows the playbook. He's been there all season so far. As I already mentioned, they used that kind of 1A committee in Denver. Nothing's really been going well in Denver, though, this year. So who knows how they'll roll the dice and maybe change things up. But to me, outside of Melvin Gordon, who is the only notable back in that backfield, the big name, Latavius Murray is the guy to grab. But I'm not even overly confident in saying that.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what you really do in that situation, especially if you're thinking about that game specifically. I mean, you got to do what you have to do. And if this week that's what you need to do is pick up Latavius Murray, then do it.
And that's who I would grab over Mike Boone. Personally, that's where my waiver would go. You choose, really. It's kind of a toss-up. But if you're looking at
up in the air, see where
the most talented of those two, it's Latavius Murray, despite his age. So going into Thursday night, if you're going to drop somebody, if you have a bigger bench, add Latavius Murray. I'm not saying start Latavius Murray, but just hold on to him on the bench. See what he does. See how they use him. Don't freak out if he doesn't even get used, because it's a quick turnaround for that guy. Yeah. Mike Boone may be heavily used in that game if Melvin Gordon can't go because he's carrying that questionable tag right now. But Mike Boone may also not be productive against the Indy defense. The Indy defense is very good.
Yes.
That's our tidbit going into Thursday night. But for the rest of the weekend, what do? How do you work the waiver wire this week? One of the big names, one of the big ads, if he's unowned, is Tyler Algier. Cordero Patterson moved to the IR with a knee injury. He's not out for the season, so Patterson owners, don't freak out there. But Arthur Smith did say that Algier is going to step up right now as one. Of course, Caleb Huntley. That's right.
That's
Huntley. Yep. I'm just making sure. I'm not overly versed in the third stringer for most teams, but I got it right. Caleb Huntley. He did say Algier right now is going to be the starter. He'll be the early down back, but that, it's a toss-up. That can easily change. But Algier, 5th round pick out of BYU. He's a talented rookie. Keep in mind that Damian Williams is also eligible to return. Yep. And I would find it hard to believe that they don't insert him right away, because he was a great replacement for Clyde Edwards-Helaire a year ago, a couple of years ago, when he went down with injury with the Chiefs. He's known more as a passing back too, which is also something that I think more about in the coming weeks, because they have Tampa Bay's defense, they have San Francisco's defense, they have Cincinnati's defense, who are great against the run. Tyler Algier, though, will get the early down work. I'm adding him to my team. That's who I'm over Caleb Huntley. That's who I'm adding.
I actually did that, but I put Caleb Huntley because I honestly was like, I guarantee you he's going to put Algier on his list.
I also like Algier's last name because it looks like alligator.
Yeah.
Frankly.
And you could just go through and be like, you know what? That looks like that says that. I'm going to grab.
And you know what? That works
nutmeg.
That works so often.
Yeah.
Really? Whenever it's me. Oh, yeah. We fill out March Madness brackets every year in my family, and my sisters are like, that color is cool. That mascot is dope. Yeah. Yep. They're winning the game. And it's like a 12 against a 4 or a 5.
But sometimes
they
happens.
pull it out. Well, because anything can happen. So if I'm going to base my knowledge off of theirs and say I'm going after alligator, that's what I'm doing.
All right.
Tyler Alligator.
I put Caleb Huntley on my list. Huntley had 10 carries for 56 and a touchdown. Obviously, Falcons went run heavy in a close game with the Browns. I think that you could grab either one of these two, and they probably will be available in most leagues. Caleb Huntley is like 1% owned. Obviously, with the Patterson injury, that ups the chances of him playing a little bit more. Alligator is 18% owned.
Yes.
But they're both.
He got boosted to 20, by the way.
Oh, what was that? 10 minutes ago?
Yep.
Okay. Well, makes sense. I did this like a couple hours ago. Anyway, but I think that between the two of them, it could be a pretty good even split.
We'll see. We'll see how it works. But also, Patterson is He's been having an awesome season so
Mhm.
far for the Falcons. Arthur Smith expects Patterson to be back sooner rather than later. He
Mhm.
stated that the first time he is eligible to return is week 9 against the Chargers,
Mhm.
but that gives you 4 weeks of a possible RB1, and those are necessary wins at this point
Right.
into the season. At any time you can grab a win, whether it's week 4, whether it's week 12, I'm snagging a win when I can.
Right.
And Tyler Algier could be that guy, or Caleb Huntley could be that guy. You heard both takes, right?
Yes.
Both arguments.
I think it's a 50-50
We'll just have to see.
or a 40-60. Either
We'll just
way.
have to see. Moving down the list here, another name that has been injured to open the season, and I almost wonder if people have forgotten about him, Brian Robinson Jr. So Antonio Gibson saw a season-low 41% snap share last week after starting this season at 65%. Now, this type of decline is concerning, overly concerning for Gibson owners, because it seems like Rivera is planning to insert Robinson and almost like planning ahead, right? When you see a decline like this without real competition, it's almost like, man, are you trying to wean him out? Like, well, what's happening here? Now, Brian Robinson still has multiple weeks that he can come back. So they have 3 weeks to activate him before he reverts to the reserve list, also known as the NFI list. If that happens, Gibson is there, fully. And I'm a huge Gibson fan. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to knock on Antonio Gibson. I think he should be used more. And the Commanders were also outscored 49-18 over the past few weeks. So in those games, you can't be like, oh, well, he didn't get his rushing attempts. Well, yeah, because you're throwing the ball.
Exactly.
However, when Antonio Gibson made his way into the league, he was a wide receiver coming out of Memphis. And then they converted him to running back, and the way they wanted to evolve him was sort of like Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
And when that's not happening, when you're not seeing those type of results, now it's gotten me thinking like, okay, you were outscored 49-18, but this guy has some of the best hands in football. Why aren't you finding different ways to maybe get a screen pass in, or utilizing him for a dump off, or maybe even putting him out wide and running him as a wide receiver?
Right.
What
He's
happens
got the
now?
skill set.
He absolutely does. That's why I'm like in the back of my mind, like, man, maybe they are secretly trying to make room for Brian Robinson. And maybe by the end of this year,
some stuff.
Brian Robinson Jr. could be the early down back, and it could easily turn that direction. So snag Brian Robinson Jr. now. Snag him now as we see the snap share decline for Antonio Gibson, whether it's this week, next week, or the following week. You know what? Say you add him and they don't activate him, you can come back and chop my head off, but I don't see that happening. I think they get Brian Robinson worked into this system as quickly as they can. And he seems like he's making a smooth recovery after his gunshot wound. So now it's time for him to come out guns a-blazing.
Right. There you go. I like that, actually. Maybe I need some help. I don't know.
It's a sneaky ad. It's a real sneaky ad.
I'm adding that to my list. Some of your names. I put Michael Gallup on here. I know that I think it's just 9 months ago he had an ACL tear. However, he made a huge impact for the Cowboys in their win over Washington. He caught 2 balls for 24, drew a couple flags for another 65, and he's likely, to be targeted quite a bit against the Rams because CeeDee Lamb is going to be getting covered by Jalen Ramsey. So I think that Gallup back will be number 2 for Cowboys. He's only 41% rostered as of a couple of hours ago. But
let's talk Cooper Rush, huh? Cooper Rush throwing the football. He's looked good. Michael Gallup could be a nice addition to most teams if you weren't holding on to him initially. But yeah, I always liked Michael Gallup, even last year when he wasn't overly targeted. He found the end zone last week. He's the type of guy that, maybe a boomer bust touchdown threat.
I had that in there in my notes, like might not be like super, every single week reliable, but I think this specific game, this weekend, I think he will be.
And the Cowboys have not been effective running the football this year. I don't know if it's Zeke Elliott. I don't know if it's Tony Pollard. I don't know if it's just because they're resorting more to the pass or if they're trailing more in games, whatever it is. they like to throw the ball with Cooper Rush. And so far, they've been successful with him at the starting quarterback position. Not to say that he's better than Dak Prescott.
Right.
Who knows? Who knows? I feel like somebody said that. Some big name sports analyst
that he's better than
made
Dak?
a hot take, said, yeah, Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott. I'm just
I
like,
don't know
what are
about
we
that.
doing? I mean, if we
Are
get
you
down,
saying that because of our game?
well, if we get down to like stats, like there's
Yeah.
probably some stats out there that show that Cooper Rush can be more effective in certain ways. But like we're talking about a top 8 quarterback in Dak Prescott.
Right.
Stop it.
Sorry.
Stop it.
The pigeon's in here.
Yep, I saw him earlier. Yep, he's overlooking us. It's almost like the elf on the shelf, but like I don't know. Maybe this is the fantasy pigeon. That's like
there we go.
It's our carrier pigeon. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna write up our notes on a sheet. We'll roll it up, put it under his claws, and he'll fly away to whoever needs it most.
Yes,
right?
yes.
The carrier pigeon.
That's why we're here, and now we have a carrier pigeon.
Here's somebody that I never would have thought I'd bring up on this show.
2 weeks ago was brought up as a hate.
He drops back to pass. Looks left, looks right. DK Metcalf streaming down the sidelines. Geno Smith hits him. Oh my goodness. Geno Smith makes the waiver wire list for the first time ever. What is happening?
I literally wrote on here, I can't believe we're doing this, but the numbers don't lie, my friends.
What is happening?
They don't lie.
So last week, he got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett heavily involved. 60% of his 30 passing attempts went to those two guys. That totaled 240 yards of offense. Now, they did play Detroit. So Detroit's defense, not the best defense out there. Plus, there were, how many points scored? Was it 48, 45?
I think
so.
You're right,
93 points were scored in that game. This is what's most interesting, though, about Geno Smith. Is even if you're playing a bad defense, you still have to make the throws. You still have to make the plays.
1,000%.
He, over the last 2 weeks, has compiled 645 passing yards. That's third most in the league.
Yep.
Third most. Geno Smith. We're talking about a guy that when Drew Lock got traded, when the Russell Wilson trade took place and Drew Lock went to Seattle, we all thought Drew Lock was going to start there, not Geno Smith.
Dude, yeah.
Not Geno Smith. But instead, Pete Carroll had other plans, but Geno Smith in. And Geno Smith, he's been productive.
Very.
And he's been more productive in fantasy than Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson when it comes to passing yards. Now, that's it. When it comes to passing yards, I'm not going any further than that. I'm not saying, oh, he's better than Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying he's better than Kyler Murray. But when it comes to passing yards, he has more than every one of those guys that I just listed.
Yep.
That's insane to me. Geno Smith will have a much more difficult matchup against the Saints this week. He'll have tough matchups moving forward in the coming weeks as well. But if you need a quarterback, and in some instances, like me, I drafted Trey Lance in a league. I have Kirk Cousins as his backup. I'm getting sick and tired of Kirk Cousins. Maybe I just take a chance and get sick and tired of Geno Smith, right?
Yeah. I legit was, and I didn't even look at who you had at quarterback, but that's why I wrote Geno Smith on this list, because like I said at the top of this little segment here, the numbers don't lie. And if you need something in a desperation move, I guess if you want to call it that, I'd definitely pick up Geno Smith this week.
I have Russell Wilson and I have Derek Carr in another league.
Oh, God.
I could start Geno Smith and feel just as comfortable with how this year has been going.
Yes, for sure.
Just as comfortable.
That's why football is just a lovely, stupid game.
It is. But it's lovely.
It is.
Over
lovely,
stupid.
Lovely. Lovely.
I have one more name on this list, and I'll just bring him up briefly because I brought him up briefly last week, and I want to do it one more time. Devontae Parker. He is going to continue to trend in the right direction. After a 156 a week ago, D Park had 2 for 24 and a touchdown. Doesn't sound great, right? But in an average fantasy league, that's 8 points. So 8 points is better than some players got, right? And keep in mind, Brian Hoyer got the start in that game, and he didn't even play most of the game because they had to bring the third stringer in. So Mac Jones was spotted on the practice field last week. Didn't really do anything. I think it was more of like a Bill Belichick move of just being like, ooh, let's get reporters all, you know, the gossip going, right? And then he was just like, no, Mac Jones isn't playing. But if he was on the field and he's there, and I don't know if he participated in any drills, that means to me that he could be strong enough to go, if not this week, next week.
Right.
And if Mac Jones is back, Devontae Parker being that number one option right now in New England is a juicy addition to hold on to whenever week 6 and week 7 approach. I'm just saying.
Stick it in your pocket.
And if he does come back this week, they get the Lions defense.
Yeah.
And what did the Lions defense give up last week? 48 points to Geno Smith. 240 total yards.
And that's how it
to
comes
Tyler
full
Lockett
circle.
and DK Metcalf. Right. Yeah, I know. I just wanted to add that little tidbit in. So those are my favorite ads of the week. But if I'm being completely real with the people out there, I may not even burn on anybody because I don't know if I feel overly comfortable. I know I said it at the beginning, but I don't know if I feel overly comfortable dropping Cam Akers for Tyler Algier.
Right.
I really don't. I don't know if I feel overly ecstatic about dropping Antonio Gibson for
that
Latavius Murray.
Burkhead pickup a couple weeks ago fit me for that week, but I need to move on. So, in those types of situations where you may have felt a little bit desperate a couple weeks ago, you picked up somebody that got you by for that week. That's what these picks would be for this week.
And keep in mind, I feel like I've been saying keep in mind a lot this show, but keep in mind.
Keep in mind.
Week 6 is the start of NFL bye weeks, and that's where the waiver wire really starts taking a toll on lineups, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. So we'll be back next Tuesday to deliver waiver wire ads of the bye weeks to come. Plus, we'll be back on Sunday to deliver everything you need to know leading up to game day, noon kickoff, our rankings, our favorite players, our favorite starts, who we don't like, who we think you should sit. Even if you don't think they should sit, we're still going to sit here and tell you why we think they should. And if you have a rebuttal us on the show. Yes. Send us a message and say, there's no way. No way. But we'll give you statistical evidence on why we think that should be the case. Now, outside of statistics, feelings come into play often whenever I root for my Bears. So don't argue me about the Bears.
Try not to draft any players on the team that I cheer for.
Amen to
as
that.
much as I can.
Other than David Montgomery, amen to that. Can't agree with that statement more. And we can't forget about the early game on Sunday, Giants, Packers. Last week, a lot of fantasy owners out there, I already alluded to it with Pat and JT, may have had a little too much to drink the night before, had a long night, and forgot, oh no, Alvin Kamara, he was just questionable, and then they ruled him out before the game. He's in my starting lineup. Now I'm going to lose. A lot of fantasy owners lost. They all did. My brother was one of them. He called me, and I said, dude, that sounds like a you problem. Doesn't sound like a me. I was up. I was up at 8 o'clock making sure my lineup was set and also making sure if I could maybe find a steal in DFS. I started Latavius Murray in DFS, got him at a super cheap price, and it worked out for me. It worked out very well for me. I actually got paid last week in my DFS league. So that's great to know. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the Giants and the Packers now. And the thing to watch for is the status over Daniel Jones. He exited last week's game. Tyrod Taylor came in, got a concussion. And then Saquon Barkley was forced to play quarterback for a while against the Bears. And if I'm correct, I think Daniel Jones had to re-enter in that game at one point. So is Daniel Jones the guy to go after this week? I'm going to say no. I'd say find a better streamer. If you have Daniel Jones and you were thinking about streaming him against the Packers, which I would find bizarre if you had that mindset. But if you did, I'd find a different streaming option. Or if you are going to ride Daniel Jones, make sure to wake up early on Sunday and see if he's actually playing or not.
Yeah, like early, like 7:30 early, so that you can also get your Bloody Mary and watch the game.
Now, I don't think it has a lot of implications for fantasy owners out there. Daniel Jones only 23% rostered. But for those that do have Daniel Jones and we're thinking, maybe I'll give him the start in the early game, I'd be careful there. I wouldn't do it personally. I don't recommend you doing it. I think you are crazy to do it. But if you do it, he plays and he goes off, I'll be the first one to admit I'm wrong.
Yeah. Won't be the last time he's wrong either.
Hey, stop it. Sausha, thanks so much. Great picks, great insight on delivering this week for Waiver Wire Week 5. Hopefully, we provided you something out there take one little snippet of this, and if you take one snippet and apply it to your team, that's a win for us. And our job is to help you. And that's what we sit here for. That's what we do the research for. We want to make your lives easy, because there are many things a man can do with his time, but none are better than this. God bless you, and God bless fantasy football.